We begin this morning with the pandemic.
Yeah, Dr. Anthony Fauci is walking back his comment that the U.S. is out of the pandemic stage. Take a listen to his original comment that was made on Tuesday.
We are certainly right now in this country out of the pandemic phase. Namely, we don't have 900,000 new infections a day and tens and tens and tens of thousands of hospitalizations and thousands of deaths. We are at a low level right now.
We want to dig in now on the growing confusion about masks in the state of the pandemic. As we just mentioned, Dr. Fauci initially made a comment that we were out of the pandemic stage, only to then walk that statement back. It's just adding to the confusion many already feel as people try to make sense of recent changes in mask mandates. NBC News Now correspondent Zincle Esamoah has more.
A major announcement from America's top doctor that after more than 2 years and nearly 1 million deaths,
we are certainly right now in this country out of the pandemic phase.
One would think this statement would spark hope and optimism. Instead, it's only added to confusion over mixed messaging. Though declaring the pandemic phase to be over, Dr. Fauci also said he will be skipping the White House Correspondents' Dinner. His reason? COVID precautions, leaving many wondering what an end to the pandemic means. Dr. Fauci has said the pandemic phase of coronavirus is over. What does that mean to you?
It means I can take my mask off. I just don't think that's true. Like, science has proven otherwise.
The confusion doesn't end there. Just last week,
Transportation Security Administration will no longer enforce the federal mandate requiring masks in all U.S. airports and on-board aircraft.
A judge striking down a Biden-era mask mandate for trains and public transit. The president said this when asked about the topic.
Mr. President, should people continue to wear masks on planes?
That's up to them.
But days later, his administration appealed the ruling in an effort to return to mask wearing on public transit. And while airlines were quick to drop mask mandates, many airports did not.
There's a mix of people wearing masks, not wearing masks.
Do you feel clear on where and when you're expected to wear a mask, or is it uncertain?
There should be more clarification.
Honestly, I just don't care anymore because I feel like whatever the strain is probably, let me guess, more contagious and less deadly.
There's new evidence that officials haven't known exactly how many people are getting sick. A study by the CDC shows nearly 60% of the U.S. and 3 out of 4 children have been infected with the Omicron variant.
There are infections that are not getting centrally reported, so I do believe that there's an undercount.
I feel like just a month ago we were being told that things are getting worse again.
Take New York City. Here, hospitalizations are small, the 7-day average reaching new lows. But for the unvaccinated, risk of hospitalization is a whopping 20 times above the city's average.
If I get sick, it's my fault. Not what Fauci says, not what anybody else says.
I feel like things are safer now.
I mean,
Safer?
It's a crazy day to ask because your sister just got COVID.
Yeah.
The fact that there's no hospitalizations now is definitely comforting, and tomorrow looks a lot better.
And while Dr. Fauci said we are transitioning out of the pandemic phase, he adds we're not out of the woods yet. And generally, many people I spoke with said if they're choosing to wear masks, it's for the vulnerable and immunocompromised. Many children still are not eligible for the vaccine. And so while a lot of the risks in regard to COVID have come down, many people are still very fearful. Back to you.
Zincle, thank you. Turning now to the war in Ukraine and a stark new warning from Russian President Vladimir Putin aimed at the West. Speaking to lawmakers yesterday, Putin said any foreign intervention would be met with what he called lightning fast retaliation. The threat comes as President Biden prepares to ask Congress to fund a new Ukraine aid package this morning. That's according to NBC News sources. And there's more fallout from that move by Russia's state-run energy company to shut off gas supplies to Poland and Bulgaria for refusing to pay in rubles. A report by the Financial Times says some of Europe's largest gas importers are now preparing to meet Moscow's demands of paying in the Russian currency. Comes just a day after the president of the European Commission urged countries not to bend to Russia's request, adding that the EU's dependence on Russian energy is ending.
It comes as no surprise that the Kremlin uses fossil fuels to try to blackmail us. This is something the European Commission has been preparing for in close coordination and solidarity with member states and international partners. The Kremlin failed once again in his attempt to sow division among member states. The era of Russian fossil fuel in Europe is coming to an end.
NBC News Global correspondent Raf Sanchez joins us now from Lviv. So, Raf, let's start off with those comments by President Putin. What kind of retaliation was he alluding to in that speech? And is this threat anything different from what we've heard from him before?
Joe, this is being seen as a veiled reference to nuclear weapons. He mentions that Russia would retaliate to what he called unacceptable strategic threats. And strategic is usually a code word used by both the Russian and American governments for nuclear weapons. Now, this is not the first time the Russian leadership has floated the idea of a nuclear exchange sparked by what's going on in Ukraine. American officials, from Secretary of Defense Austin down onwards this week, saying these comments are reckless, they are unhelpful at a time of such high international tensions. We know that the CIA has been concerned that Vladimir Putin, frustrated his forces aren't making the kind of progress he wants on the battlefield, might try to use a small-scale tactical nuclear warhead. Now, this is a weapon, it doesn't have as big an explosion as a traditional nuke, which makes it sound less scary. But the frightening thing about it is you might be more inclined to use it because you think you could do so without sparking a full-scale nuclear exchange. U.S. officials have been keen to stress, though, they are not seeing any sign on the ground of Russia's nuclear forces actually preparing for any kind of attack. Joe?
Raf, the UN Secretary General is in Ukraine today meeting with President Zelensky just days after meeting with Putin in Moscow. This morning, he visited those areas around Kyiv that have been just devastated by the conflict. What kind of support is he offering?
So one of his main goals here is to try to organize a humanitarian evacuation out of what's left of that steel plant in Mariupol. As you said, 2 days ago in Moscow, he came out of that meeting with Vladimir Putin saying the Russian president had agreed in principle to allow the UN and the Red Cross to evacuate Ukrainian troops and civilians inside that steel plant. 48 hours later, Joe, we are still not seeing any sign on the ground that that deal is being put into practice. No sign of anybody coming out of the steel plant. The commander of a Ukrainian Marine unit who is down in the bowels of that steel plant releasing a video overnight saying 600 of his men are wounded, saying they will die down there in the darkness in those tunnels if they don't get medical treatment. He has been appealing to Pope Francis, to the international community, to anybody he thinks will listen to try to get an evacuation underway. Joe?
Such a troubling situation there. Raphael, we have you. I also want to ask you about what's happening in Kherson. That's the southern city that has also been occupied by Russian forces. There have been protests in recent days, reports of explosions there. What else can you tell us about what's happening there?
Yeah, Joe, Kherson doesn't always get a lot of attention, but it really matters what's happening there. This is the only city under full Russian control, and it is the city looking most in danger of being annexed by Russia. Just this morning, Russian officials say they're going to start using rubles, the Russian currency in Kherson, and they're going to start handing out Russian passports there. President Zelensky very worried of a rerun of the 2014 playbook from Crimea, where Russia staged a referendum, said 97% of people voted to be part of Russia, and then they annexed. Now, we spoke to a man who escaped from Kherson 2 weeks ago, and he described passing through a checkpoint manned by Chechen forces who were searching cell phones. Take a listen to what he had to say.
The first checkpoint was the most difficult. Because at that first checkpoint, Kadyrov soldiers checked the phones and passports very carefully.
Were you afraid at that checkpoint?
Yes, I was afraid. In the morning before the evacuation, there were rumors that our convoy is going to be attacked, or they're going to check everyone, including all men.
Now, Ukraine's military says 300 men have been disappeared from Kherson by Russian forces. They say they are being tortured. Many of them are former Ukrainian soldiers, political activists. The mayor says gunmen showed up in his offices this week and forced him out of the city council building. So, Joe, this is all just a very grim picture of what may be to come in Mariupol and in other Ukrainian cities that fall under full Russian control. Jeff?
Incredibly grim. Raph, thank you so much.
Let's get more now with John Herbst. He is the former U.S. ambassador to Ukraine and a senior director of the Atlantic Council's Eurasia Center. Good morning, and thank you for being here, Ambassador. Let's start with that planned new aid package for Ukraine. Administration officials describe the amount of the request as massive, but so far we have not heard a specific dollar amount for the aid package. In your mind, what does Ukraine need most right now?
Look, it's very clear what Ukraine needs. It needs more of the long-range artillery, which we decided 2 weeks ago to send. It needs more of the multiple rocket launches we decided last week to send. But it also needs fighter jets, and it needs bombers, which we are not helping them get. And that's a mistake on our part. It needs long-range drones. The Russians are massing their troops. They have lots of tanks. They have lots of airplanes in Ukraine's east. They're making small progress. If Ukraine gets the weapons we're talking about, they'll be able to stop that progress.
Ambassador, you don't think that they're getting enough offensive weapons, it sounds like. Let me ask you this. The United Nations Security Council, they're talking about how they may investigate possible war crimes by Russia. But do you think anyone will actually be held accountable for the stories that we have seen and heard that are coming out of Ukraine? Will it make a difference?
Well, this is very important for the historical record. And if I think there's a chance that some people will be held accountable, but for sure, in a historical record, they will be held accountable. Russia's going to lose this war in Ukraine at some point. At some point, they're going to want to restore normal relations with Ukraine and, with that matter, the international community. At that point, war criminals may well be vulnerable, subject to justice.
I want to talk about the prisoner swap between the U.S. and Russia. Former American Marine Trevor Reed, he is back home in the U.S. this morning. He was released yesterday in exchange for a Russian pilot. He was there for about 3 years. Now, this is all happening, as you know, in the middle of a hot war in Ukraine. So what does this tell us about the communication that's happening between the U.S. and Russia?
Well, this is a good thing. It shows that despite Moscow's aggression and our beginning to push back hard against that aggression, we are able to conduct business where we both see an interest. So prisoners exchange like this happen from time to time. The fact we were able to manage this in this period of great tension, again, says something positive about our ability to get other business done with the Kremlin.
You said it's a positive sign. Do you think this could possibly apply to basketball star Brittany Griner, who is there, former Marine Paul Whelan? They're still in Russian custody. Is this maybe signaling that they could also be freed soon?
Well, I hesitate to use the word soon. It does mean they can be freed. But the thing to understand is that Moscow plays hardball with American prisoners. If they want to get someone out who we hold, then they're willing to do an exchange. And sometimes we'll wind up giving up criminals for people who the Russians arrest for no good reason, except to have Americans as hostages. But that's how democracies act, and that's perfectly understandable. So I think the possibility of getting them out is real. The timing, I just don't know.
Ambassador John Herbst, former ambassador to Ukraine, we really appreciate your perspective. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now to the ongoing battle over the southern border. Overnight, a federal judge blocked the Biden administration's effort to allow a Trump-era immigration rule to expire. Title 42, as it's known, is the policy enacted during the early days of the pandemic. It allowed the U.S. to remove migrants and bar them from entering the country to protect public health. Now, the Biden administration has been trying to end the policy. This latest ruling comes after Homeland Security Chief Alejandro Mayorkas testified in front of several House committees. He was asked about the administration's efforts to secure the southern border as apprehensions there rose to record levels. NBC News reporter Julie Sirkin joins us now with more on this. So, Julie, good morning. Let's start with what Title 42 does and what this ruling now means for the Biden administration's immigration policy going forward.
Yeah, Joe, good morning. Well, Title 42 was put in place by President Trump when the COVID pandemic was really coming to an influx point in the United States in March of 2020. And what it helped Border Patrol agents do, what it gave them the authority to do, is to turn away migrants that they deemed were a threat to public safety back home to American citizens. And it helped in turning away nearly 2 million migrants who were trying to cross the U.S.-Mexico border. Now, this ruling that came overnight is something that we did expect since Monday. A Louisiana federal judge ruled a temporary restraining order to stop the Biden administration from rescinding this policy until May 13th. But I will say that is 10 days before the policy was set to expire regardless. So it's not clear how long this temporary restraining order can prevent the Biden administration from rescinding Title 42.
So as we mentioned, Homeland Security Chief Mayorkas testified in front of several House committees yesterday, and as you would expect, he faced some strong criticism from Republican lawmakers. What moments stood out?
Yeah, Joe, it's not an easy week to be the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security, and he faced grilling from two big panels over in the House. You can imagine that Republicans who have been very critical of the Biden administration's policy at the border since Biden was sworn into office are now especially heated up over Title 42, something one Republican told me was the last Band-Aid, the last line of security to prevent this influx of migrants at the border that we've been seeing increasingly growing over the last several months. I want you to take a listen to one exchange between Mayorkas and a top Republican on the House Foreign Affairs panel.
We inherited a broken and dismantled system that is already under strain. It is not built to manage the current levels and types of migratory flows. Only Congress can fix this.
Your responsibility by law is to protect the United States, both air, land, and sea. You have failed in this mission when it comes to our land border. I must say, sir, with all due respect, I am disappointed.
We do expect this to continue today. We expect Mayorkas to continue to defend the administration's decision when he returns before the House Judiciary Committee. But I will say I spoke to top Democrats briefed on this plan from the Department of Homeland Security and how they plan to deal with an influx of migrants once Title 42 is rescinded after May 23rd. And one Democrat called it, quote, ambitious to me, Joe.
And Julie, I mean, we know the Senate has had a hard time passing another round of COVID aid because of the divide between Democrats and Republicans over this issue, over Title 42. What more can you tell us about that? What can we expect now?
Yeah, it's been over a month since a bipartisan deal was struck on that $10 billion of COVID relief for vaccines, therapeutics, something I think most people in Congress on both sides of the aisle agree that we need. But Republicans, especially in a midterm election year, were quick to say, wait a minute, if the Biden administration is ending the pandemic, they say, at the border, then why do they need more money to deal with it back home? And we expect Republicans to continue to demand a vote on Title 42 in order to pass COVID aid, which, by the way, now is being floated as a potentially linked with Ukraine aid. So you can see how this problem is escalating. But of course, Democrats as well, vulnerable Democrats, particularly in the Senate, have been vocally opposed to the rescinding of the Title 42 policy. Democratic leadership so far has been reluctant to put a vote on the floor on Title 42, has been reluctant to put their most vulnerable members on the record here.
Julie Sirkin. Julie, thank you so much.
All right, we're going to get a check now of your morning news and now weather. Y'all, this is exciting. A lot of activity in the studio
No
today.
need to adjust your eyes. Michelle Grossman is a real person who is here in person. Good to have you with us.
I'm so happy to be here. I'm so happy to see you both. I just want to give you big hugs.
Yeah, air hugs.
Air hugs, yes. It's been 2.5 years, and we are happy to be back. But we are looking at cold weather once again. Sorry, guys. That's what we're going to talk about first, because we're looking at 19 million people impacted. You can see from the Great Lakes all the way to the Northeast. We're looking at a freeze warning. That's in your hot pink. So we're looking at Toledo, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, down to Charleston, and even a freeze watch. This is where you want to cover any sensitive plants, put a blanket over them or spray them with water. That's going to keep them a little insulated. And then as we go throughout time here, we are looking at, of course, my graphics are not going to work for me.
We're still working stuff out
here. Back in the studio, this is what's happening here.
Graphics. Who needs graphics? We got Michelle Grossman in person, y'all.
Why is it not advancing? All right, we're going to work on this. Wait, we can do this, guys. I'm going to press a couple buttons here and see what happens. All right, well, we're just going to talk about the weather here.
So the freeze alerts are frozen. The freeze alerts are frozen.
Yes, absolutely frozen. We're looking at temperatures in the 30s this morning. It's feeling like the 20s in so many spots. So we're looking at places in New York City feeling like the teens also. As we go throughout the afternoon, we're looking at temperatures in the 50s. That's about 9 degrees below what is typical for this time of year. But when we look to the west, I did this a couple times this morning, so know what these maps are. We look to the west, we're looking at temperatures in the 80s. So we have a jet stream that's kind of dividing the nation here, and we're looking at really, really warm air. That's the first thing. The second thing is where we're looking at the chance for severe weather. So we're looking at anywhere from Nebraska all the way to Texas, where we're looking at severe weather in terms of small hail, Even some damaging winds, low risk for tornadoes today, but we get to tomorrow, enhanced risk. So we're looking at large hail. We're looking at a severe weather outbreak, possibly. We haven't talked about that in quite a while. And that's going to extend into Saturday as well. So we're going to get these graphics going for the next hour.
Who needs maps? You do a dramatic recreation.
And here I am.
We call that true professionalism.
Exactly.
Nailed it. Had the map memorized. Knows. You told us the weather.
Exactly.
We can picture it in our minds.
Okay, perfect.
Well, we'll more next hour with graphics.
We'll work on this.
All right. Good to see you, Michelle. Thanks so much.
Bye.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.